Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Miss Ashley, and welcome to Balance or Hustle Live, where we discuss the concerns of professional women and the matters that may concern each and every one of us in our lives and where we are today. Our topic today is Overcoming Superwoman Syndrome. It's a very tough topic, and we have our special guest, Audra Jimenez, here to help us unpack this topic. Audra is a licensed clinical social worker, which she has been that for over 20 years between New York as well as Arizona. In addition to being a mother as well as a wife, Audra also manages a independent apparel brand, clothing brand, Blacktopia. And it's a wonderful brand. And I'll go ahead and let Audra add anything else that she may want to add in addition to what I've said.
Well, I'm just so happy to be here, Miss Ashley. Thank you for having me. And I'm just excited to talk about the topic today. Thank you so much for introducing me so well.
Okay. Okay, so moving right along, want to jump into our topic, which is Overcoming Superwoman Syndrome. So pretty much we're going to talk about Overcoming Superwoman Syndrome, hanging up the cape, and what that might mean. So Audra, how would you define Superwoman Syndrome?
Well, from my understanding, it's a woman who is managing to juggle all the normal roles that she has in life, but then also kind of adding different things to her personal life, career, home, any extra passions and goals that she has and dreams. I'm just really trying to manage and juggle all of those things at once.
I think that I would agree with everything that you said. I think what I might add in defining a modern day superwoman might include someone who is overworked and overcommitted, and so definitely would want to add that, and then and basically what that might mean. And then one of the things that I want to ask too is, do you believe a superwoman is a choice? Is it a decision that we make? When we get out of bed, do we say, hey, okay, I'm going to wear the cape today, or I'm not going to wear the cape today, or I'm going to grab the blue cape over the pink cape, or I'm going to wear the blinged out cape? What do you think about that? Do you believe that Superwoman Syndrome is a choice?
Well, I think sometimes it can be, depending on all the things that you're juggling and all the things that you want for your life. I mean, I feel like some people just have some big dreams and goals that they want to add to the roles that they already play, and it's just like they don't want to put it down, or like you said, and they're overworked in different places in their life, but they also have these other things that they want to do, and they just are there, and there's just too much. But I also feel like sometimes there's some things within those roles that you can't put down on your own. Like you just can't put it down. If you don't juggle it, it won't be, it's not like somebody else can't do them. And so it's like a struggle between a choice and not a choice, because you can choose to put some things down, but sometimes women don't have a choice on what they can put down or not. And that, I think that's where the struggle lies.
I wholeheartedly agree with that, because I also feel that a lot of things may not actually be a choice, especially if you're a mother, right? Like that may not be a choice for you to put down the caring for your children, right? Or mothering your children. And I don't think, when I thought about it, I don't necessarily think it's a choice either, because a lot of, when I really thought about what is the buildup, what is the foundation of someone who identifies as someone who is suffering from Superwoman Syndrome, a lot of the times is built up from a context that may completely be out of our control, and maybe we're moving and working out of the necessity and not necessarily not necessarily just out of moving and completing tasks out of a luxury, right? So like when I say that, just to give you a better idea is, for some women, they may have to work multiple jobs in order to provide for their families to make ends meet. And so it's more of a necessity, and she has to work um, at a supernatural strength, right, in order to maintain um, just a very common or average livelihood. And so I agree. I don't necessarily think it's a choice. It's not, like I said, I don't think we're waking up deciding if we're going to, which cape we're wearing, today, or if we're going to be a superwoman or not. I think sometimes when you hit the floor each morning, the expectation is already so high that you have to perform um, in the supernatural, by maybe overworking or overcommitted, because that's just what is expected of us. Um,
So yeah, yeah,
okay,
no, I agree. I agree. It's yeah, it can be very difficult with the choices that you have. I agree. I agree.
right. So one of the things too is who sets the standard of a superwoman. What does that look like? Who determines if you're a superwoman or not, and who sets the standards? And I'll go ahead and start, but when I thought about this is, oftentimes I saw something that says that women are driven, it's competition that drives women to being a superwoman that may suffer from a superwoman syndrome. And actually, I couldn't disagree more, because I don't necessarily think the context of every superwoman is driven from competition. And then, as I previously said, I really think that it comes from a place of necessity for survival, right? And maintaining your livelihood. And so I don't necessarily think it's driven from necessarily a woman's desire to compete with another woman. And then another viewpoint I heard was someone was saying how they believe that it's driven from someone who may have some sort of low self-esteem or lacks of self-value. And I actually disagree with that as well. What do you think about that, Audra?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that I don't think um, someone sets a standard. I don't think that there is a standard on how people can be a superwoman. There are just women who do it, but also the competition thing. I don't think I know women from the outside looking at a superwoman who would want to actually do that. It's more of like, I don't know how she does that, or like, where does all that, how does that happen versus, I'm competing to be like better, or, against each other. I don't think it's more like that. I think that some people are thinking that, are thankful that they don't have to pick up so many hats or juggle so many things, or like you said, be at a place where they have to have many jobs in order to keep things, make things financially stable, so that they can move forward with their life or support other people or give as much as they can. And yeah, the competition thing doesn't, I don't agree with that also. I just I feel like we're all in solidarity in a lot of things, because we can relate as women to a lot of different things together.
Absolutely. And then one thing I might add is, a superwoman, we're in the United States, but a superwoman within the United States is is different than what we might define as superwoman, let's say in Europe, right? In the continent of Europe, or different countries in Africa, just because the culture, I think it's driven by the culture and the expectations of women and what our responsibilities are. I think typically most women have entered I'll say a good portion women have entered the workplace, but that's common here within the United States. However, when we look at other continents or other countries throughout the world, the expectations of women are different, or not even the expectations, the things that women are allowed to and they're not prohibited from doing is actually different. So I think that kind of contributes to Superwoman and kind of defining the standard here within the United States. I think the United States being such a place of liberty for women, you know, we've been able to enter the workforce and compete for jobs that, let's say, our male counterparts may also compete. But then at the same time, we're responsible for the same wifely or motherly duties that we've always been responsible for as in history, right? And how tradition may have lied those rules or expectations out of us. What do you think about that?
Yes, I think I would agree. I think there's a lot of different rules and expectations in our society that are different from other countries and other places. I think that it's difficult to actually know what it is like everywhere else, but here, as a superwoman or as a person who has too much to juggle, it can be really difficult to maybe, I don't know, maybe align with other people. Like if you're when you're juggling all these different things, finding ways to communicate that or talk to other people or um I don't know, share your struggles is hard because it's just it could be so much stress, right? And so maybe the stories are not told as clearly or as I don't know, there might be just one definition that people kind of go to, but everybody's individual story is different in the superwoman like category, right?
Right.
And it just so I feel like it could be different here, but I feel like there's super women everywhere and in every different culture, and there are things that are expected of women in general to do. Um, but it can be it's all difficult sometimes. not to be said that you can't get help or you can't uh, try to implement what you need. It can be hard. It can be difficult.
Right, right. And I absolutely agree. So that kind of leads me to another sub point, but also a very important emphasis of Superwoman, because as we recognize that between countries, right, because the culture is different, the definition of someone who suffers from a Superwoman syndrome is actually different and defined differently, and the standard may be different. But let's go more precisely right here in the United States in defining black women, right, or Black woman superwoman syndrome, and what that might look like or what that might mean. So I think that's a whole lot to unpack in itself, because you know while we may suffer from what we might suffer from what they might feel is the same thing, it still may be very different, even culturally here within the United States, between Black women or just women in color in comparison to our counterparts. Is there something you would like to add to that?
So, yeah, I mean, the difference, I think one thing, I think it's that strong Black woman stereotype that people talk about in regards to connecting that with the superwoman, right? Because if you're a strong Black woman, there's a lot of different things that people expect you to be able to tolerate, or maybe live up to, or maybe I don't know, career-wise, be able to do or fix, or other standards than women who are not women of color. And I think that adds to the superwoman mentality, because we should not be expected, just because of a stereotype, to be a superwoman when we don't want to, we don't have to, maybe we aren't, but just looking and identifying that as the strong Black woman idea. I think that that's a difficult thing to break, and I think there should be more information, maybe talks about it, maybe even in the workplace, even in amongst ourselves, so that we can find out how to, I don't know, break down the walls of that, break down the idea of that.
Okay. You know what? I think that's true because I absolutely agree with that in the sense that, you know, the context of which we, where we might, where Black Superwoman Syndrome may come from, right, derive from, is completely different, right? So we have to look at the social cultural aspect as well as the economic and also our historical context in defining where we're pulling from to that has created this strong Black women image for most of us. And one thing that I think I have seen is that, you know, that was almost a positive thing to be called a strong Black woman. You know, you're a strong sister or you're a strong Black woman. I think a lot of us has saw that as a term of endearment, you know, as a positive thing. But what we've learned over time, and I'm hearing some conversation about it, but it's clearly not enough where we are, you know, we're being identified as the strong Black woman, which kind of puts us into the minds of others as someone that's supernatural and inhuman, right? Because I think that kind of lines when you're a superwoman, you're not just an average woman, you know, you're more than what the average woman can perform. And I think that strong Black woman kind of aligns with that perfectly to where supernatural things, right, inhumane things are required of Black women. And when you talk about the importance of it, we also talk about the foundation of how, kind of going even back to history, how the foundation of the United States was for Black women, you know, even in slavery, Black women were still required to perform same duties or similar duties in the fields as many of the men, as well as mother the children, as well as take care of, you know, slave owners, all of this, you know, on one woman. And then whatever else responsibility she was responsible for. So I think that kind of builds up into the context, into the image that we have identified today, to where you're just holding down everything. You know, you're everything for everyone, which is not healthy, and oftentimes, you know, which is not healthy, and we're actually identifying and seeing that now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and when you were saying like supernatural, you know, we there is a positive connotation for strong Black women and being supernatural that almost always people kind of look at that, but like you said, they're not seeing how a human person cannot possibly really be supernatural, and that what happens then is the expectations that are attributed to that person become unreal and become unrealistic, right? And so then, even though there's so much power and so much ability to the things that a Black woman can do, it shouldn't take away from the amount of caring or fragility or hurting or needing of love that should be attributed also, right? And I think that gets lost or can get lost along the way.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. No, I think that's excellent. One thing I might add, some key points in identifying the Black Superwoman Syndrome, and we can break these down. You can tell me how you feel about them once I go through this list, but key points, and this was shared. I found this online, and I thought it was so relevant because we can identify. I could personally identify with some of these, but the obligation to present an image of strength, which is, right, and then the secondly, suppress an obligation to suppress our emotion. Maybe I'm not gonna cry, or I'm not human. I'm bigger than that, or I can get through it. I'm not going to show anyone me being vulnerable, right? And that's resisting vulnerability for help from others, right? Is our third point, and then also motivation to succeed against the odds contributes towards Black Superwoman Syndrome, and then also. Putting others before ourselves. And what that might also look like is taking on the stress of others. Maybe, a family member is sick, a sibling is sick, our grandmother's not feeling well, or they may be going through a hard time or a bad time. And we carry that, right? We carry that same stress that they may be experiencing. And those are key points that kind of part of the build up of Black Superwoman Syndrome. What do you think about those 5 key points, Audra?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot there. I think just like this suppression of emotion and the obligation to be strong, right? So the strength, right? And I think what's interesting is within those two, it's like asking for help. If you're going to be strong, right, and you're going to suppress your emotion, you're not going to ask for help, and it's going to continue to get there's just going to be too much pressure. And maybe I'm just thinking like, that's where like anger and frustration comes in, because this image is like, you're supposed to be strong, you're trying to be strong because you don't want everything to fall, because you're juggling everything.
Right.
And so then these things just become so much pressure. Well, where does all that pressure go, right? Where does it go? Oh, what can you do with it? And then you either put all of your energy into being supernatural, right? Because then it has to go somewhere. So you're doing all of these things. Or it goes into other places that are probably unhealthy, detrimental to yourself, but it still keeps everything juggling, right? So just like you said, those points are really valid, but then also harmful to just being human in general.
And so I think you made a key point when you said, where does all this stress go? We're human too, but if we're suppressing our emotions, not being vulnerable in receiving help from others, not knowing when to ask for help, not even knowing how to ask for help, and then one of the most important things is sometimes we don't even know we can or we need help, and so I think that's another part of it is like, do I need help, or do I got this on my own, right? Or can I manage this on my own, and not understanding that you actually need help, right? And it's okay to ask for help, and then determining how to ask it and when to ask for help and how to ask for help. So that's part of it, and then the emotion, and then also maintaining an image of strength, which that we actually turn into a whole nother episode where we talk about maintaining image of strength, masculinity versus femininity, because that's a very interesting topic right now. But those are things that definitely we have to consider. And then also, do you believe that there's a need to feel, do you feel like when someone says like, you're a strong Black woman, clap, 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 hooray, you feel you feel like that's like a fuel to our fire, or your fire, or just in general, maybe it's not a directed towards you, but just in general, do you think that contributes towards the applause that you get for doing supernatural things, or things that ordinarily people wouldn't expect out of a woman, or out of another human being?
No, I think that saying, or that what did you say? Like appreciation, right? The way that appreciation is given.
Right, like praising, praise
Maybe
for producing supernatural outcomes.
right. Because
Right.
see, I think it might the way that praise is given, right? Hides or eliminates other types of praise, right? Because if you could just say that, you're missing out on bonuses. You're missing out on what other people get. Like, hey, like, what you did for your work deserves this reward. Not the saying, right? So, yes, people like to say that. And yes, maybe we would receive it in a positive way, but we don't want that. We want what the reward is for what we did, right? And if we're able to do superhuman things, we need superhuman rewards for those things, not just words. And I think that the words get more power than the actual what is that word? Compensation that should be given. And I think that happens in the workplace. I think it happens personally. I think that happens a lot everywhere.
Right.
And we're really, people really are doing supernatural things that shouldn't be, and it shouldn't be required. It shouldn't be expected. This is an extra. This is a bonus to what you sign up for when you get a superwoman on your team of any part of your life. And if that does happen, it's not something to take for granted. And I think that's what happens, which leads to more, more detriment to both us, society, anybody who's involved or have been affected by a person in that role.
I want to just jump in. I think one of the key points that you mentioned was, having a superwoman on your team, right, or someone who can rise to the occasion to get the job done should not be the standard. It should actually be a rare occasion and actually a bonus, right? So there's times where you may have to, life may unfold in a way you may have to work a little harder, right? Do more than you're typically expected to do. But I think that's key, is making sure we're not taking on responsibility that requires us to overwork. And then if we have to, at a frequency that's still healthy or helps us maintain a healthy work-life balance. I think that's a very key point. And I'm so happy that you brought that up. Because I think too often we're overcommitted on a 24/7 basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's normal for a lot of us, where, we should run into maybe a more healthier balance, and of course I think it's subjective, because I think it's different for every woman, because we all have a different bandwidth and we all have different obligations and priorities in life, but just something that may be more healthy, maybe once a month, where, hey, I've got to work late, I've got to do a little bit more or do more than I typically or ordinarily would, but the standard should actually be within a healthy range. I think that's an excellent point. And so in moving on, relieving some of the stress, right, that we may actually take on. And one of the things that we might say is, one of the things of how to relieve some of the stress to overcome Superwoman Syndrome is saying no, and realizing that no is a complete sentence. Sometimes that's difficult, because I think so much is always asked from us. And sometimes no may not always be the best answer, maybe for those who are asking, but sometimes it's necessary. You have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, saying no is, that is a big deal, because, just for me too, I had to learn that. Can't believe when you say I've been in the field this long, I have, but it's just, there's a way that you learn to say no, because you're saying yes all of the time. I think the balance also is taking care of yourself, like self-care, right? Because
Right.
I know for me, I need massages once a month. I really, really do. Like there's just no there's no way to get around it. And you got to find that thing for yourself that releases stress because especially when you're doing way too many things.
Right.
Um, also, I found as a therapist, I need my own therapy myself just to release some other things because, I think that makes a healthy therapist or even a healthier person just to like move within this world, just to be able to have a place where you can process and really um, dive into things that you want to change for yourself.
Right, right. So definitely, I love that you mentioned therapy because that is, as well as massages and spa and exercising and whatever that someone else's thing may be. It may just be hikes or taking walks, but therapy is definitely a key point that I think that's healthy. That gives us an opportunity to have that outlet to kind of unpack the things that we've experienced or we're experiencing, and I think you're excellent at what you do because you have conversations with individuals and probably unpack their form or their version of Superwoman syndrome as well. And so I think that's excellent, excellent advice. Right. So moving, were you going to add something?
Um, no, I was gonna say I don't know if we talked about the unhealthy outcomes, but just with all this pressure and stress, I know that I was reading an article a while ago, and with all this stress of trying to be a superwoman, they were saying or talking about like having the unhealthy side effects of like high blood pressure, or you're having your own anxiety, you're having your own depression, you're having your own, just symptoms that are coming up, and sometimes maybe sweeping that under the rug, and then it becomes bigger health issues. So I know that was one thing we
Right.
might talk about.
Right, right. I think that's important as well. Identifying like different your health and being sensitive to what you may be experiencing. Because I agree, oftentimes things they may start very subtle or in very subtle ways to where you might not identify it as an issue in your current within your current physical body or mental health. But then it's like a snowball effect. It becomes more over time,
Yeah.
and so I absolutely agree. And part of my research in with Balance or Hustle, I realized that breast cancer, part of cancer,
Mm,
sometimes the foundation of it is stress. Mental health, also is stress, and that's why we focus so much on helping women to achieve a healthier work-life balance. That's for them and finding the right balance for them, because I believe it's subjective for every woman. It may look differently. You may see someone that may be performing at a high functioning level, but not realizing maybe this person actually has help in other places. Maybe they outsource a lot of their duties. Maybe they have an assistant. So and maybe they're able to focus on the things that maybe you see more of. And so that's important to um, keep in mind as well. It actually speaks to what we were talking about earlier in the conversation when we talked about, competition or seeing what other people are doing and setting the standard. And we feel like we have to also maintain that. Another thing I wanted to add, and I know this is probably even something we may talk about in a different episode, where someone said, like, there's a meme going around that says Beyonce also has 24 hours in a day. And, when I hear that, I cringe because it's not the same 24 hours, right? When we hear someone like Beyonce who has 24 hours in a day and we're comparing ourselves to her and her success, I don't necessarily think it as a competition, but more so in comparison to see the things that she's doing where we think that we should be doing as much as she's doing. But the reality, Beyonce probably has, I'm sure she has a staff. She's maybe buying um, 40 hours per day, right, from individuals that work for her to help build the life and maintain the life that we love and that we enjoy and appreciate. So that's something that I think that's important to highlight as well, when we start to unpack the superwoman syndrome and identifying how we overcome it within our own lives as well. Another key point that I wanted to bring up is overcoming guilt from being relaxed. I know I suffer from this where there's always something to do on my desk. So sometimes it's hard to step away from my desk and actually enjoy when I know there's things that I have to do, maybe clients that I have to, emails that I have to reply to, or maybe I could be doing some research or writing a letter for a client or building more business. And so even overcoming the guilt and um, understanding how unhealthy it is. And what I've done in my life is put structure and structure within my day, within my week, within the businesses that I manage to kind to block time out of when I'm going to work on certain things, even the days I'm actually going to do consultations to kind of help bring a balance within my life, structure within my life, and to help maintain a healthier work-life balance for myself as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. Oh, no, I was going to say, yeah, I agree. I just for healthy work-life balance, for me, in addition to just taking care of my mental health and my self-care, just cutting out on work. I mean, for my private practice, I was working on Saturdays, and I had to cut down and just work one Saturday a month, and it was due to like not spending enough time with my family. Also, I think I just was creating more work. It was just like a higher workload than I had to have. Um, and the thing that I am grateful for is being able to do that, like having the power to say, "Hey, I don't want to work on these days." That is something to be grateful for because a lot of people don't have that or have to work certain hours. And not to say, we are always making sacrifices on what it is we need to do, especially when we're trying to superwoman or superpower through things. So.
Right. So, okay, so just to conclude our conversation on how to overcome Superwoman Syndrome and identifying Superwoman Syndrome uh, amongst Black women and what that might look like, key points of that, and how to overcome that as well. Do you have any work-life balance or productivity tips or advices that you would like to share with our audience that we can take? Any gems that you want to drop at this moment?
Oh, I mean, say again?
Is there anything that you would like to share as it relates to work-life balance hacks or tips, productivity? Anything that you would like to share with our audience?
Well, one of the things I think we touched on is asking for help. Like, definitely finding ways to ask for help, have support in your life, have key people that you can bounce things off of, and just really um, support you and can identify when you are having that moment where you're like going off the cliff, right? They know you so well. They can be like, okay, it's one of those, it's one of those times. We know where this is going. We've talked about this before, because when you have those people in your life, um, or you have the ability and you recognize that you need to ask for help or find these people, it makes it easier. It makes it easier to create that balance, to start to create that balance, and to maintain the balance. And so that would be my biggest tip. Like, really find those people, find your people to help support you.
That is a great tip to you have a community, right? Building your community that's going to support you in identifying and also prioritizing your health and mental health as well. I think that's an excellent tip. Well, Audra, thank you so much for being our guest today. Um, you were this is an excellent topic, and you have an excellent background, and everything that you provided was just very valuable. And I know our audience will also enjoy this information as we all grow to help, as we all grow to grow, to create, grow, and enjoy success. Thank you so much, Audra. We also are going to put Audra's information on how you can connect with Audra in the comments and the captions of this video. And then also how you can connect with her, support her brand, Blacktopia, learn more about what she's doing. There's also going to be a survey attached to this video. Please feel free to complete the survey and stay tuned because our next episode is going to be just as good, if not better. We're going to be talking about more things related to professional women and all of our concerns and what we're dealing with on a daily basis, and everything that is important to us. So stay tuned and look forward to our next episode. Thank you so much.